This person's clearly trying to be the next Casey Neistat. This guy's click rating the heck out of this video. This girl's posted 3 videos today. It's only 9 a.m. If you want to develop a genuine relationship with your YouTube audience, you need to not only be aware of the content you're putting out, but what the public perception of that content will be. Let's talk about what your YouTube channel is saying about you. Here's the deal. Online gurus often push this idea of publishing your face off as if posting whatever comes to your mind as often as humanly possible is the best way to grow an audience and keep them loyal. And sure, being consistent with your content is obviously very important, but it's even more important to post content that's purposeful, intentional, and that actually leads to something rather than just content for the sake of content. So here's an exercise. Think about your favorite filmmaker. Maybe it's Steven Spielberg or Martin Scorsese. They don't just start their feature film at scene 1 and then wing it for the rest of the movie, right? They know the exact emotional journey that they want to take their audience through. They already know how they want to affect and shift the beliefs of their customer before they actually produce their product. Just like those filmmakers, you want to take your audience on a journey. You want them to be along for the ride until the very end of your piece of content, and then you want them to invest in whatever message or product or service it is that you're selling. So just like those filmmakers, your stories should be better than your audience's stories. And what do I mean by stories? I want to get into more detail about that, but first, have you subscribed to my channel yet? I post new videos like this every single week to support you in your marketing and business acceleration, so go ahead and click that red button. What I mean by that, and asking what are their stories, I mean what is your audience's internal narrative? What are the stories that they're telling themselves that are actually false beliefs? Your audience is typically watching your content with a false belief in their mind that you're gonna persuade them to break. So if you're in the nutrition industry, maybe you're trying to break someone's false belief that no matter what they do, they'll never lose the weight. Your job is to invite them to take that journey with you and learn how to do what it is that you've already done so well. Your intent is to help them become aware of the opportunities available to them and offer them a chance to grow with you. So I want to give you some basic steps to creating impactful content that actually converts, because on your YouTube channel, you want to be attracting an audience that you can build a powerful relationship with, that those powerful relationships are also going to turn into sales. So step 1 is to build your own original content that's authentic to you. Step 2 is to drive impact with that thing. Now, obviously we're oversimplifying it here, but I promise you, when you lead with a story, the impact and profit comes so much easier and with less effort. But to really demonstrate this for you, I want to introduce you to my story selling framework. It's an acronym called the ELSA framework. And yes, this might remind you of the one and only Elsa, the Snow Queen, the songstress who brought us Let It Go. But for these purposes here, do not let it go. Hold on to this because you're going to be able to set up your content to turn into cash. So ELSA breaks down into epiphany, lesson, story, application. So let's start with E, the epiphany. Your epiphany is so important in storytelling in your YouTube videos. It's way more important than just the publishing your face off, because you don't get paid by the amount of content you create. You get paid to the level that you get your audience to engage. Let me say that again. You don't get paid by the amount of content you create. You get paid to the level that you get your audience to engage. And you do that through stories. If you can hook your audience in and give them that epiphany that helps them break through or maybe even changes their mind about something when your stories are better than their stories, aka their false beliefs, they're much more likely to engage with your content and you're more likely to get paid. So I'm thinking about what is the underlying epiphany that I want my audience to take away from this? Because if I don't have that intention set, I may as well just create content for the sake of content. That's not what we're here to do on our YouTube channels. We are here to make an impact and a profit, and you don't do that by just winging it. The second part of the ELSA acronym is L for the lesson. Now, as a kid, and if I'm being honest, even now, my biggest excuse to not go to bed on time was, but I just need another story. And I'd always be like, but mom, it's educational. Because, you know, every story that starts with once upon a time has a moral of the story. But when I say lesson, I don't want you to think like buttoned up, robotic, Charlie Brown teacher, wah, wah, wah. The lesson you teach or the moral of the story is important. But if you're just cold hard facts, you're speaking to the left side of the brain, which is like the stats and statistics, the logical. And sure, that shows that you know what you're talking about, but if it's all stats and no story, it can easily turn into a snooze fest. And if it's all statement and no substance, it's fluff. So how do you give this lesson, this moral of the story, in a way that's memorable? I was following this famous influencer recently, and she was doing this live video where she basically just kept repeating the same phrases, kind of like in different words, just saying, you can do anything you set your mind to, and don't give up on your dreams, there's always a way. And I was like, okay, great. And I didn't understand the context or reason why she was saying those things. Sure, that's positive and uplifting and great advice, but if it's just a drive-by pat on the shoulder with no context, are you still questioning why? What's the takeaway? What's the meaningful message that will be remembered? And so I kind of sat there for a second wondering how much of personal development is just like Barney for adults. I don't know about you, but I like the kind of content where you have that aha moment, you feel the emotional shift. It's the stuff that makes a lasting impact. That's the stuff that makes you memorable, that makes people trust you enough for them to give you their credit cards. You owe it to yourself and to your audience to create a transformation. And we teach through stories. We consider the epiphany we want our audience to have, the story that we can tell to give that epiphany, and the lessons we want to get across, and the application or the next step with the call to action that they can implement. So your stories will also teach a lesson about your attractive character and allow your audience to learn from your own experience. So this brings us to the S in Elsa. So what story are you going to tell that naturally incorporates your epiphany and your lesson? People always ask me, where do you get your stories? But honestly, my best advice here is that there are content ideas all around you. You just have to take the time to learn how to see it and learn how your content can become a cash flow system for your business. You don't need to go looking for your stories because your trip to the grocery store can become a story. Your recent phone call with a friend can become a story. Reorganizing your closet can become a story. If you have an idea like giving motivational speeches to your pets, for example, go with that. But don't stress if you can't come up with a story out of thin air because I guarantee they already exist in your life. Take stock of what you've done and where you've been in the past week or anything interesting that's happened to you. How can you relate that back to your message? Where is the lesson? Where is the epiphany? And think about that. And when you go into the world after today, try to do so with this mindset so that you can be aware in the moment of the lesson and the epiphany that you can use when you retell this story to your audience. And if you're not sure about your stories, it's probably because you're too close to them. I had a client once that told me, I don't have an origin story. And I was like, of course you do. But because we're too close to it, I understand it can be hard to tell what's a good story, what's important or impactful or not. That's why one of the first things I do with a new client is I have a long, in-depth interview with them. Sometimes it's like 2 hours long and all emotions are involved. After you have a really good heart-to-heart with a friend, you're gonna need to have a heart-to-heart with your content. Turn on a recorder, start telling your stories, or in your mind, think about your life in chronological order and start to write out the moments that made you who you are today. Maybe even work with an entrepreneur friend of yours who might also be struggling to pull out their story or their messaging and ask each other questions about your origin story. Just by getting into these deep conversations, you can have certain realizations and epiphanies that you would have never expected. As you grow, your content always evolves. I believe that entrepreneurship is a game of personal development. My content isn't the same as it was a year ago because I'm not the same as I was a year ago or a month ago or a week ago. That self-awareness and growth is going to impact how profound you can be in your content too. Over time, you'll keep growing your entire story inventory that you can reach into any time that you're launching a new video or speaking at an event or creating a new piece of content. When you followed through on these steps, this is going to help you to grow the YouTube channel of your dreams and impact the audience that is just raving about you and the ones that can become your potential future clients. And I want to help you take it over the edge and learn the science behind turning those viewers into high-ticket, high-paying customers. I want to give you access to my free private training, so click the link in the description below, and I'm going to break down the exact steps that you can plug and play your way to 7-figure cash flow. Leave me a comment below, tell me about your favorite movie of all time, whether it's a guilty pleasure or a classic. Oh no, Elsa's not scripted here. You just have to take the time to learn, okay. But because we're too close to it, and like I said, over time, you'll keep growing your entire story. I actually want to give you some of my highest performing, most revenue generating, what was I saying?